one of the most important things happening in the country politically right now is the Supreme Court special election in the wonderful state of Wisconsin. And joining us right now is the candidate for the Wisconsin Supreme Court, Brad Schimmel, a great Wisconsinite and American patriot. Brad, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Charlie. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for all you're doing to get the truth to conservatives and to get them to the polls. This is the key here. We've got to get conservatives to wake up and get out and vote. It's the only way we're going to take our nation back, and we're going to take the state of Wisconsin back.
I completely agree. And let's just frame the significance of this. And everybody in Wisconsin or a neighboring state, I want you to drop what you're doing and listen carefully. Brad, it's an off-election year. It's 2025. Didn't we just have an election? Didn't we just elect a president? Yeah. Why is this important? Please go into deep detail. We have tons of time. What's going on and why does this matter?
Well, in Wisconsin, we have our judicial elections in April. So this is the normal judicial election cycle. We have 7 justices on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Only 1 can be on the ballot at a time. We've got a liberal justice retiring, and this is an open seat. The stakes could not be higher here in Wisconsin. We have leftists took over the majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court 2 years ago in 2023. And they're going through a political agenda. They are working to wipe out every conservative reform that's been passed in Wisconsin to make us strong, prosperous, safe. All those things are on the chopping block now. And it's not just about Wisconsin. This is something that this race has become nationalized first from liberal billionaires across America who saw an opportunity in Wisconsin to take the presidency, to take the House of Representatives. Here's how. My opponent went on a Zoom call with billionaire donors across America, liberal ones, of course, and she offered up that if she gets help getting elected onto the Wisconsin Supreme Court, they're going to take out 2 Republican congressional seats in Wisconsin and turn them Democrat. That's what they're offering up. This is bigger than just Wisconsin. They are looking to control America through the actions of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And the way she's going to do it is they're going to redistrict. They're going to take those our two toughest Republican districts in Wisconsin, redistrict them so they can flip them Democrat. That's what they're up to.
So let's go back to the previous Supreme Court race that we lost, I believe in 2023. Yeah. What happened after we lost that? What were some of the decisions that ensued because of that lost election?
You know, the candidate who ran, the liberal, she openly stated on the campaign trail how she was going to rule on cases. She told voters that the maps are rigged, referring to the state legislative district maps. She said they're rigged over and over again. No surprise, the day after she was sworn in, lawsuit was filed to have those maps stricken down, and within a matter of months, the leftist majority bypassed the trial court, bypassed the Court of Appeals, took the case directly up, and struck down the maps that were put in law by our state legislature so they could be redistricted and gerrymandered to help Democrats. That's what they're up to. They promised on the campaign trail that they're going to take out a thing called Act 10. Most people in America don't know what it is, but it's a reform in Wisconsin that limited some of the bargaining power of public employee unions. Has nothing to do with private sector unions, but limited some of the power of public sector unions. They're promising on the campaign trail to take that out. That is going to cost instantly. It's going to cost Wisconsinites billions to try to overcome what happens when that law is wiped out. They've promised to do this. They're going to keep that promise. My opponent was the lead lawyer attacking Act 10 in the courts over a decade ago. You know what she's going to do. It's not hard to predict what's going to happen next, given what they're doing.
You mentioned something of great significance. You said there is a lot of national out-of-state Wisconsin money flowing into this. Explain more, please.
You know, my opponent has gotten nearly half of her money from outside the state of Wisconsin. 97% of the money I've gotten and 97% of my donors are from people who vote in Wisconsin. I'm proud of that, and I prefer that, but I can't keep up if she's going to continue to get $1 million from George Soros. He just passed a check right through the state Democratic Party for $1 million to my opponent. The governor of Illinois is in for over $500,000 already. He was in for $1 million 2 years ago. Reid Hoffman is already in for hundreds of thousands of dollars. She's getting all this money from these national liberal billionaires. And I'm particularly concerned about George Soros, because if that guy's influencing what someone does in a race, we're not going to last very long as a state. That he hates everything good about America.
I want everyone to donate. It's at schimmelforjustice.com, but that is 1M, not 2. Is that correct?
Right.
CHIMEL for justice.com. You're incredibly solid, and we're behind you 100%. I want to ask just the trend of these elections has become unnecessarily more partisan. I imagine that 20 or 30 years ago, Wisconsin Supreme Court elections weren't this divisive, but it is those on the left or on the activist side that are deciding to rewrite the Constitution and contort state law towards their political aims and ends and purposes. Please speak to this.
Right. They went raw political in 2023, promising what they were going to do on the bench when they got their majority elected. And then they went forward and they started delivering on those promises. They have turned this raw partisan, and we have to turn this back. The reason I got in this race is to restore objectivity to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The legislature should make the law. The political branches should worry about the politics. On the court, we should set that aside. When you put the black robe on, that's symbolic of being objective, being impartial, not worrying about whether it's a good policy or a bad policy, but simply enforcing and implementing the law the way the legislature wrote it. If we don't do it that way, this all fails. If the court's going to get into writing the laws, then there's no reason to have a legislature. If the court's going to engage in political decisions, then there's no reason to have an executive branch. And it takes away power from voters. Our Supreme Court justices are elected statewide for a 10-year term. So when they decide what the law says, that means the local legislator that represents you has no power. And that means you as a voter have no power. You have no way to take these justices out until 10 years later, and they're going to decide everything for you. That's what we have in Wisconsin.
In closing here, I know you anticipate being outspent, but not outworked. What are ways that people can help? And also reiterate, this is a purely turnout election. That if we turn out, if we can get we won't get close to presidential turnout, but I mean, even if we can break records and get low propensity voters, we're going to win. Please explain more.
Yep. That's exactly the key. 3.4 million people voted in Wisconsin in our November election. Now on April 1st, we expect about 1.5 million of them to fall off. Whoever retains their voters best wins in this. We've got to get out and ask those low propensity and mid propensity conservative leaning voters, ask them if the job is done. Do they think it's finished? And I think they're all going to say, no, there's a lot more work to do. Well, then we've got to convince them that part of that work is to get out and vote April 1st. If I get 60% of the voters who voted for Donald Trump in Wisconsin for November 5th, if I get 60% of them to come out and vote for me on April 1st, I win. That's our message to people, is get out there and vote. This job is not done. And it didn't take that much effort. Seriously, it didn't take that much time to go vote. Nothing bad happened. No SWAT team came and kicked your door in after you voted. And you got to feel great on the morning after the election, knowing you were part of a movement to save our nation. You can continue to be part of that movement and have that great feeling on April 2nd. If you get out and vote April 1st, and actually, we've got to encourage people. Wisconsin has very expansive early voting laws. You can start voting by mail early by March 11th. You can vote in person early absentee March 18th. We're urging people to get out and do that, because in Wisconsin, we can certainly have a blizzard on April 1st. You don't want to have that happen and you don't get out and get your votes cast.